How many of you are interested in being at your very best? Okay? Anybody ever really processed what that question is all about? You ever thought about how to, I'm going to ask you to do this in a few minutes, of how do you take your worst moments that you've ever had, your worst performance moments where you just totally bit it, and contrast that to those moments that were pristine and perfect, and try to understand the gap between those two experiences. Ever wondered what's the difference? Hopefully you have. That's been my quest, I think, over the last 25 years, is trying to figure out what are not only the common factors that high performers use to be at their very best, but how do individuals more specifically find their one thing. So my goal is that by the end of, I do this normally in about a 4-hour period, so we're going to condense and chop out a lot of stuff. But my goal is that by the time we get done, you will each have identified your one thing. We talked a lot about the idea of a training mission. That one thing that if you could clear the gap on that would be the most highly leveraged thing that you could do as a student. And so that's what I want to get to by the end of this day, or this hour, is to help you kind of find that one thing. Is that a reasonable thing to do? Okay, so we're going to actually do a bit of an assessment. So you've done a 360. We're going to do what I'm calling the 720-degree sweep. It's going to be another series of questions that I will go ahead and ask you. So hopefully every one of you has a pen or a piece of paper so that you can add this to tab 2. I've asked Karen to run out and gather some old pens and pencils for those of you who did not bring them. And we'll get through this rather quickly, but my goal is that you find your one thing after this. Okay, so here we have a sprinter. Throw it out there. What does it take for this woman? What does she have to do to be in this position? Ready for a race. What kinds of things does it take to be in this particular starting point?
I'd say energy and desire.
Okay, desire, energy. Yeah?
Use that to prepare yourself mentally and physically.
Okay, mental and physical preparation. Yes. What else? Ability. So natural or innate, or, you know, the 10,000-hour rule possibly. What other things? Yeah. Opportunity. Yep.
Healthy diet.
Healthy diet. Anything else? Courage. Now, how long could we go and talk about these different factors, right? We hear them all the time. Every single book on leadership, every single book on personal development, same notes, different music, different symphony, same basic instruments. So the question is, can you identify what the major notes are and the major instruments are of peak performance? But more importantly, how do you utilize them for your own benefit? Is it any different when we talk about the corporate athlete? A manager or leader or executive every single day has to prepare, has to have a vision, has to organize the schedule, has to eat well, has to sleep well, has to manage attitude, manage stress, set goals, get on group-wise, check email. It's the same stuff, different arena, right? So in my study, as I looked at like astronauts and how they prepare, when you look at Olympic athletes, when you look at dancers, when you look at how police and fire departments go into a fire, how they deal with a very violent situation, different arena, different techniques, different specifics of the arena, but the high performance principles are always the same factors over and over and over again. So the goal is, how do we, as PLP students and Cal students, set the stage to run the race, to maximize your performance in the classroom, in your projects, in your work, in your professional lives, in your personal lives, in all those areas, right? So we staged this morning. I couldn't find a good picture, so Abby was good enough to do that this morning in the Hall of Thanks, huh? All right, so I was looking for, and these are hard to find. They're all over the place, but it's hard to find the best ones. And not that these are the best ones, but we're going to do this with you personally. But I tried to pick, and I told Haley to help me find this, and we were struggling with that today, the worst moments of flow and the best moments of flow. And if anybody of you seen the Joaquin Phoenix interview with David Letterman? Now, flow can be not only a personal experience, but an interpersonal experience. How many of you have been in flow, been in the zone, at your very best when you're interpersonally connected with somebody else? You get lost in time, all that stuff, right? Okay, we've all had the best date. Anybody had the worst date? Okay, So consider that on David Letterman. And we're going to just watch about 2 minutes of each. And this is a real video. This is not staged and it's not Saturday Night Live. This is what I call anti-flow.
Thank you very much for being on the program again. You know, it's been 3 years since the last time you were on the show, and I will just say right off the top here, you look different than I remember. You've got a nice beard going, and
Oh, yeah, thank you.
how is it, the beard?
In what way?
Well, is it comfortable? Is it itchy? Is it, are you pleased with it?
I'm okay with it, and I make me feel weird about it.
I'm sorry, I'm making you feel weird about it?
There's something wrong?
I can't be the first one to make you feel weird about it.
No, I guess not.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Is it, you do a lot of this?
About just a nervous tick, I think.
Well, just a nervous thing. You know, I saw this movie the other night. Tremendous. What a tremendous film. You and who else is in it? What's her name? Beautiful, lovely. Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh,
Very nice movie. And you don't see movies like this much anymore. I was so gratified to see it. And you were terrific in the film. I really enjoyed your work.
thank you.
What can you tell us about your days with the Unabomber? So here's my hope that after some time off, I think you're taking a little time off tonight. I'm hopeful that you will reconsider and come back to acting because you just, you know, nobody really better than you are. Joaquin, what will you do now?
Well, I've been working on my music.
Your music. We don't.
Okay, so you get the idea. Not a good moment of interpersonal flow. Now, we're not sure why. Could be external reasons, could be internal reasons like massive drug use. But I want to, now here's a guy, highly competent, very well trained, performed exceptional in the past, blows it on stage with David Letterman. Now, here's a contrast, and this is, I think, probably the most documented, probably the most amazing miracle I've ever seen on video. Anybody ever seen this story with the autistic kid, right? So here's a kid who has basically been on the bench his entire high school career. He's never really been able to make a basket, and they decide it's the last game. Everyone's there to see him play. And watch what happens to this kid, and watch his comments about it.
Jason McElwain was at practice today doing what he does every day. As a student assistant, he helps out the team. But all that changed on Wednesday night. That's when Coach Jim Jansen decided to give Jason his shot to suit up and play.
You said this is your senior present, this is your last chance to ever get out on the floor as an actual basketball player for that night.
Jason, or J-Mac as he is known, is medically diagnosed as highly functioning autistic. He's also loved by his teammates and fellow students. That's why they came to the game with his face on signs. And when he entered the game, they went crazy.
My emotions started running wild. I actually sat down and I started to tear up. And I was like, oh my God, this is happening.
Jason got in the game, took a pass, and took a shot. He missed badly.
First possession, he gets the ball, he shoots an air ball. He misses like by 6 feet. I put my hands in my head, I'm like, please, Lord, just get him a basket.
1 minute later, he got his hoop. A three-pointer that set the gym on fire.
I was very excited. The team was excited. Everybody else was excited.
But J-Mac wasn't done. He kept shooting and kept hitting. Another 3 and another 3.
It's harder than a pistol.
He had hit a team record tying 6 3-pointers. The crowd stormed the court and put Jansen on their shoulders.
It was one of those special moments that, as an athletic director, if I retired today, this would be the one thing that I talked about forever.
Jansen's playing career is done, but his celebrity continues at school.
Everybody, I was late to every single class. Everybody was saying congratulations.
So you got a superstar on your team now.
Yeah, he's like a celebrity in school. He's loving every bit of it too. You see him smiling all the time.
In Rochester, New York, this is Mike Catalano reporting.
Okay. So 2 very different levels of talent, 2 very contrasty levels of performance. So the question is, how do those moments take place? And I wanted to kind of premise this by this concept, that the quality of individual, we talk about this with the Leadership Center, but the quality of individual, team, and organizational performance is directly related to what and how we place our attention. Talked about this in our 2450 class. It's about what do you value and what do you place attention to? What do you grow? So, what and how you place attention to. And in my study of flow, I have found that it's all about, ultimately, it's about where you place your attention. So the question is, what keeps us paying attention to the one thing that makes us our best? And what are the factors that either contribute to that ability to focus and be at our best, or those things that distract us and keep us from being in the very moment that we need to be? Because we literally only have each and every moment. So I'm going to kind of share some models and some thoughts with you about this, assess you on that, and see if we can identify what is your one thing. What's the one thing that is the highest leverage thing you can be working on? So, looking under the hood of your Ferrari, how many of you consider yourselves high-performance vehicles? If you had to say your body was a car, what would you call it?
Saturn.
A Saturn? Yeah. How many Ferraris? How many Porsches? How many Aston Martins? Hopefully a lot of you consider yourself to be a high-performance engine. High performance. Now, this looks to be an old Volkswagen Golf. Back in 1909, Henry Ford produced the Model T Ford. How many parts existed in the Model T Ford? Anybody know? 4,900 discrete pieces of a Model T Ford. Pretty complex, but fairly simple. How many parts do we have today? We know? How many parts to a household fly? Is the household fly more complex or less complex than a Ferrari? More complex, right? Very small, amazingly intricate. So you, being the most complex and advanced species of human animal on the planet, how complex are you? When you add up your bones, when you add up your muscles, your tendons, and the 3.5+ trillion neurons in your brain, all interconnected and firing. So how many possible ways is there to think about the complexity of yourself? It's pretty tough stuff. So the question is, how do you look under the hood of your own Ferrari and at least become acquainted with some of the bigger parts? We know when we look at a certain car, there are parts that we could take out of this picture and they wouldn't do that much to change the performance of the car, right? What could we yank out of there? We could probably pull the radio out. We might be able to pull, we could pull out part of the dash. We could yank out, what? Windows, seat levers, all that kind of stuff. They all provide some degree of value, but the critical value parts are things like what? Engine, piston, brakes, right? So some things are more valuable than others. The issue is, how do you sort it out? So when it comes to performing at your very best, there's a million things we can talk about. We can talk about all types of things. We can talk about being in a good mood because our friend talked to us. We can talk about goal setting. We can talk about all this little big stuff and little stuff. Question is, what are the big pistons? What are the big parts that constitute high performance? To do that, our goal has to be, yes, I want to be a high performer. That is the objective. It's a clear, precise objective, to From a personal leadership standpoint, how do you identify that you want to be at your best, that you want to tweak your engine to be at the very best it can be? To do that, you have to do some awareness building. Our whole point for the next 55 minutes or so is to raise awareness. Because after you get through awareness, you have to start making decisions that lead to specific actions and the execution of a plan. It's the same for a person, it's the same for a team, it's the same for an organization. So, 4 levels of personal mastery. These are important to note. We start off, does anybody need a pencil pen right now? If you do, we got some up here. We're going to do an assessment in about 10 minutes. First phase is being unconsciously incompetent. Those of you who are second years, you've heard me go through this. Most of you first years, we're not doing this class this year, so this is why I've chosen this topic for tonight. We start off the idea of we're unconsciously incompetent. We don't know what we don't know. How many of you have ever had a performance problem or an emotional issue or thought issue and you just didn't understand the origin of it? And it was that lack of awareness that made it made you unable to do anything about it, right? So 85% of your education is really going from a lack of awareness to awareness, okay? You may not be proficient in everything you learn at UVU. You may not know how to do everything extraordinarily well, but your level of awareness increases by the classes you take. The idea is to learn about your conscious incompetence. Because once you have conscious incompetence, you now know what you don't know. Why is that a great advantage?
You know where your weaknesses are, so you can work on those certain weaknesses to improve yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a buffet plate to choose from. You can choose to act on things you now have developed an awareness around. From that point, we go get training. Your 360s have given you a lot of awareness. You may have a gap in listening, or a gap in dealing with conflict, or a gap in how you work with other people. That awareness allows you to narrow in, focus on that one area, which will be your training mission. And once you go develop a conscious incompetence, you can develop conscious competence. You now can learn how to do the thing you want to do. You learn how to type. You learn how to drive a car. You learn how to set a goal. You learn how to manage time. You learn how to give and receive feedback. All these leadership skills we've talked about are all learnable. You can develop conscious competence with them. And then if you're really lucky and you do it long enough, you get to what? Unconscious competence. You can do it in your sleep. How many of you feel like you're unconsciously competent in something? What can you do without thinking?
Tie my shoes.
Tie your shoes. Lacrosse. Breathing. Anything more complex? Play the drums. Anybody ever driven to school and not known how you got there? Happens all the time. Mental macros, repeated behaviors that happen over and over again. Performance loops that show up on demand. Your goal is to shift from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. That's our goal for the next 55 minutes. After this 55 minutes is over, I'm going to give you some homework so that you can identify what you want to become consciously competent about. And I'm going to challenge you over the next 30 to 90 days of what plan you would put in place to close the most prevalent performance gap that you currently see here at UVU, as a student, as a friend, whatever you want to apply it to, okay? So a contrast of experience. I'm going to ask you to step into your history a little bit. And I'm going to ask you to ponder what I'm going to call your anti-flow moments as well as your flow moments. So everyone, I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to read to you a series of phrases. And I want you to conjure up in your mind a moment or an hour or a day or some moment that was something like this. Okay, close your eyes. Think of a time where you were totally overwhelmed with your work and your life. You lacked interest in what you were doing. What you were doing had little or no value to you. Time stood agonizingly still. You felt a sense of frustration or fear. You were not on purpose. There was a disconnect between your mind, your heart, and your body. You were overly self-conscious. There was a sense of self-doubt, and you couldn't wait to do anything else. Anybody had one of those? Anybody had one of those and is willing to share one of those? Because we're going to get to the opposite pretty fast. You want to talk? Go ahead.
My sophomore year of high school, I wasn't enjoying school. I really didn't have that many friends. And so everything about my life was really overwhelming and I didn't enjoy it.
Lack of enjoyment, overwhelm. Throw out the arena. I always identify what was the arena and what do you think were the factors that kept you from having a good experience. Where were the arenas? Throw them out. School? How about relationship? Sporting event? Theater? Music? Your first really bad kiss? Your driver's test? What other places? Work. Home. Family. Church. Okay. Now, do you think that these same arenas you just yelled out are probably the same arenas you have your flow experiences in? Absolutely. So we'll get to the more positive side. Close your eyes one more time. Think of a time, conjure an image. Think of a time when your mind wasn't wandering. You were not thinking of something else. You were totally involved in what you were doing. Your body felt good. Nothing seemed to bother or get at you. You were less aware of your problems than yourself. The stars seemed to align and everything just fell into place. You seemed to have all the skills you needed to do the job. You felt highly energized to be doing what you were doing. You didn't see yourself as separate from what you were doing. And time seemed to fly by. How many of you have had a moment like that? One or more. 85% of the population has flow moments. Every one of you mostly likely has. So turn to your neighbor. You got 1 minute each. Tell your story. I want to know, and your neighbor wants to know, where did it take place and why do you think flow happened? 1 minute, both sides. Okay, we're going to start. Listen up. We're going to go relatively quickly through this. We want just a couple stories, and we want to know, number one, where did this thing take place, this experience called flow, and what do you think were the reasons that it showed up? You got a story? You got one? You don't? Are you being put on the spot? Who's?
I got engaged last night.
Hey! So your arena of focus was getting engaged. So what was it about the moment that made it flow? Confident in the moment, going with the flow. Anything else? Happy, good emotion? Yeah? Sounded like your fiance had a goal. Possibly a vision. Maybe you two have talked about the future. Stuff like that. A little of that stuff sets the stage, right? Okay. Now that's an important point. When people have flow, they have these tremendously enjoyable experiences, but often don't know the things that contribute to the experience. Another experience. What was the arena and what do you think? What's your hypothesis of why it happened? Now, most of you have a story around a moment of flow, right? So the question is, what is it? How do you tap into it? This is the question that has been on the mind of a guy by the name of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi from Hungary for about 40 years. He's the world's most prominent psychologist in this area. He invented the concept of flow. And the reason why he called it flow was because anybody and everybody who talked about the experience said it was like flow, like flow. Okay? So let me just give you a little bit of background to it, and then we're going to assess you against these and about 65 different components of flow. So, flow started out researching artists, surgeons, basketball players. His quest was to know, why are people so absorbed in something for so long, and they literally can ignore bathrooms and food and everything else to stay in that moment. What is it about that? For 40 years, we now have thousands of research articles and hundreds of books on the topic, Everything from children to teenagers to the elderly, from athletes to surgeons to farmers. Every ethnicity just about has been studied with regards to flow, from Japan to South America, and the experience is the same. It seems to be a theory that if you understand it and you understand what makes it up, that you can use it for your benefit in any arena of life that you choose. Because as I said, every arena, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever you're going to do, it's technically very unique. But from a performance standpoint, it's exactly the same stuff. So what is that stuff? According to the literature, I'll go through this quick, people who get in flow have clear goals and objectives. They know what they want and they're ready to place their attention on that thing, i.e. long-term goals, short-term goals, etc., daily goals. Number 2, the activity provides unambiguous feedback. That means when you're in the activity itself tells you how good you're doing and you constantly adjust. So the principle of feedback for any system, be it a physical system or a natural system or you, is a vital principle for being at your very best, because without feedback you can never adjust performance. Number 3, individual feels a sense of control where awareness and actions merge together. We talk a lot about locus of control. People who find flow are able to control the moment because they control the variables that they can control. Number 4, the individual experiences limited distractions and high concentration power. So they've been able to remove all the things that get in the way of their performance, and they can spend time solely in the moment. We're going to talk a lot about what we're going to call flow assets and flow liabilities and how to sort these out. Okay? Number 5, it's effortless. People who find flow find that they have unlimited amounts of energy. They can do it forever. Marathoners who are in the zone can run a second marathon. People who are, you've had that long 8-hour conversation with somebody you're really into, and how the night just goes and you continue to do it. It feeds on itself, right? Altered sense of time. How many of you find flow, time speeds up? Okay, time goes really, really fast. Anybody had a flow experience where time completely slowed down and it just like 5 or 6 seconds turned into an hour? Michael Jordan talked about this, the last 6 seconds of an NBA championship. He said he had all the time in the world, last 6 seconds, hoop got bigger, ball got smaller, everything was clear. No way he was going to miss that shot. So the capacity to alter time, it's a unique phenomenon to this thing called flow, but it's something that happens to us all the time. Number 7, another important variable, loss of ego. You're so absorbed in the activity that's no longer about you. How many of you have ever had your ego get in the way of a performance? Okay? Why? Because our attention is what? Inside, and all types of negative thinking and all types of what if and what's going to happen if I screw it up and all that stuff that what? Takes your attention away from the 1 or 2 things that's most important. Number 8, the activity is intrinsically motivating. The activity itself is the motivator. It's not about money, it's not about boats, it's not about cars, it's not about somebody else. The thing you do, you have such an enjoyment to it, you do it for free. Anybody do anything in here for free because they love to do it? What kinds of things? Artwork.
Teach.
Concerts. Teach. We all, what's that? Running. We all have that intrinsic thing we love to do. And then the last one, really important. The activity provides a context where the individual's perceived challenges and perceived skills meet. This is where flow takes place. When your capacity or skill is way too high and your challenge is really low, what happens? We get bored, we get anxious, we want to get out of there. Ongoing lecture, a long wedding, a bad homecoming, whatever it is. Okay? We've all had boredom and anxiety, right? On the opposite side, anybody feel like their challenges were greater than their perceived skills? Yeah. You didn't prepare enough for a test or some big event where you weren't prepared and ready to go. But what tends to happen when your skills and your perceived challenges are right on line, whether you're sweeping a floor, solving a complicated math problem, running a company, running the country, doesn't matter where you are in this corridor, what your IQ is, what your capacities are, if you can find that balance between your current capacities and your current challenges, people tend to find this intense state of focused awareness. When they talk about pushing the envelope, what were they talking about? I mean, you know what the metaphor of pushing the envelope was? When they used to take fighter jets, they pushed the envelope until a fighter jet would literally start disintegrating, and then they'd slow it down. So they'd find its capacity. So what they'd do is they took the perceived challenge and they raised it as high as they could before its capacity would, the integrity of the plane would blow. And it's the same thing with us. Now you think about it, you put those 9 things in place and you probably will find that you can enter flow pretty often. But the question is, if we're the most complex species on the planet, do you think it's just 9 things? Right? We've all talked about these notes and instruments of high performance. You hear them everywhere. Time management, goal setting, etc. So the question is, and what the vital question is how do you find your particular thing? So I've put this in there for you. I'll give you a quick overview. This is the awareness building side. We're going to jump toward, we want to make sure to do the assessment, and then we're going to jump towards the real meat of what we're trying to get out of this. So what I did is I interviewed a whole variety of folks from 15-year-olds to 95-year-olds, and I asked them the same question. And the core questions were, when you're at your very best, where did it take place? And what do you think were the things that you did to replicate the experience? And I did an analysis of themes to find out what these were. There tended to be 9 themes. So this is the start of awareness. So just to let you know, for the next 15 minutes, my goal is to shift you from conscious incompetence, to unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. So I want you to kind of pay clear attention to these variables that I'm going to throw out, and then I'm going to ask you to assess yourself in one particular arena of life that you want to assess right now. Because flow is very different, whether it's school, work, family, spirituality. You have to pick the arena you want to assess. Okay? I'm going to give you an overview of the strategy, or the overview of the different themes. Then I'm going to ask you 65 specific questions that you get to assess yourself against. So be patient for 15 minutes, and then we're going to boil down to finding your one thing. Is that okay? Can you stick with me for that? Okay. So, strategy dimension number 1, choosing the right environment. How many of you feel like that you have an environment that whenever you go to that place, it's pre-constructed for you to be focused? A dance studio, for doctors it's a surgical theater, an obstacle course. People who find flow often have a place where when they go, flow finds them because it's pre-constructed, it's ready to go. It says a lot about how we organize our dorm rooms or what kind of environment we study in, etc. For those who don't have a place, environmental regulation. A lot of things that people would do to create flow would be to manage the temperature, the lighting, the artwork in your room. How many feel like you've constructed your dorm room or the place you live in such a way that when you're in that space, you totally can focus on what you're doing? Okay? All the girls raise their hand and all the boys don't, right? I was really bad at decorating my dorm room when I was in college. So learning how to manage and manipulate your environment is a really important thing. It's part of it, how I talk about in the classroom. If you're not in that T and you're not organized in the right space, it keeps you from focusing in the moment, right? Again, this is all about focusing in the moment. Interpersonal regulation. I found that if you are in conflict with other people and you're having problems with your relationships in your life, where does your attention spend most of its time? Outside, on the issues, on the relationships, right? So when everything's in place, where does your attention start going to? Comes back to centered. It allows you to focus on the moment. So relationships are a really big part of flow, or anti-flow. So those are the outside strategies. These are the inside strategies. There's really 5 categories there. I put 4. You'll notice this from the class that I teach. Physical strategies. Learning how to control your states of arousal. Learning how to manage stress, calming yourself down. Learning how to pump yourself up. Knowing how to, in any environment, find an energy level that allows you to focus. Emotional strategies. Anybody had an emotion or a series of emotions keep them out of a performance moment? All the time. Anger, frustration, fear, all that kind of stuff. How many of you have felt like emotions keep you in the moment? Passion and love for what you're doing. Absolutely. So those who are really good at managing emotion and understanding emotion are really good at staying in the moment. Psychological strategies. This is everything from goal setting to visualization to attitude control, the perspective development. When you master those skills, you are able to control the moment. In between those two are what we call philosophical strategies. It's a creed of behavior. How many of you have written a creed, a personal creed or philosophy that you live by? Okay, why does that contribute to flow? Okay, it keeps a perspective of what you want. What else? It allows you to focus on what's most important and allows you to ignore all the other stuff, right? Spiritual strategies, everything from prayer to tapping into a higher purpose or power. Okay? Again, lots of stuff in the spiritual side. Down here, self-regulation, personal management, getting enough sleep, getting enough nutrition, getting enough exercise. How many of you feel like sleep, nutrition, exercise, you've mastered it all? Those are the three like physical foundational elements of flow. And when we don't have the physical dimension in place, it's difficult to have the emotional, the psychological, and all the others. Anybody ever had such a lack of sleep? You didn't work out for a couple days, eating ramen, not very good food, and you're wondering why your thoughts and emotions were kind of running wild? Yeah? So these are all interconnected, right? So preparation, being preparation from practice, having contingency plans. You're getting closer now to entering the zone. And then effort regulation is basically when you're in that moment, how do you regulate yourself? How do you manage yourself in all these categories so that you can stay absolutely in the moment? Okay, so how many of you want to do this assessment? See how you do? Yeah. All right, we're going to do it relatively quickly, and then we're going to kind of get to the meat. I'm going to let you do the other exercise sheets by yourself tonight, but I want to give you the principles of how to use these questions. These questions are really the meat of this time we have together, and then I want to make sure you know how to use the other sheets. So here's what you got to do. You got to pick something, an arena that you currently want to assess. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's got to be something that's most important to you. Could be your roommates, could be your work, could be school, whatever. Okay? So 1 to 10 on each category. 1 is, this particular strategy or principle is completely absent in my life, in this arena. And 10 is, it's a total habit, it's an asset. Anything that's on the left-hand side is a liability. Everything on the right-hand side is an asset. We're going to boil this down to internal and external liabilities and assets so you can start sorting through the pieces of your Ferrari and identifying the one thing, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read these off. We're going to assess them real quick. You ready? Somebody need a pen or pencil? You got to pick an arena. We're going to ask these questions and you're going to answer these questions about that one arena, okay? Everybody ready to go? Okay, question number 1. How successful are you at placing yourself in an environment that is conducive to your peak states of performance? So do you have a place where you can go perform for this arena? Whatever that is. Right environment. Number 2, how effective are you at managing your physical environment? Lighting, pictures, inspirational messages, temperature, furniture arrangements, whatever it is. How well do you control the environments you're in when you're trying to find flow? Number 3, how effective are you at removing external distractions? Roommates play loud music, telephones going off, people screaming and yelling. How do you remove external distractions? Number 4, how effective are you at managing your time? Are you a good time management? Poor time management? Number 5, how effective are you at managing your physical space? Number 6, how effective are you at creating meaningful challenges for yourself? So if you're not challenged in an environment, are you able to create challenges that make you focus better? Interpersonal stuff. Number 7, how effective are you at actively supporting and affirming other people in the environment? Now this may not be a social environment, so some of these questions may not apply. But are you in good relationship with those who may be in this environment? Number 8, how well do you obtain and implement feedback in this particular environment? Do you have enough feedback and do you use the feedback you get? Number 9, how much do you enjoy being around the people in this place? We find that people who enjoy those who are around them are much more focused than those who do not enjoy the people who are around them. Number 10, rate your capacity to communicate effectively within this arena. Are you a good communicator? Does communication get in the way? Is it an asset or a liability? Number 11, rate your capacity to listen effectively within this chosen flow arena. Again, this may not apply. Number 12, how effective are you at managing negative feelings, grudges, or conflicts with others? Number 13, how effective do you utilize the knowledge, skills, and abilities of others? So you're really struggling for a test, somebody's really good at it. Do you use and leverage other people to help you perform better? Number 14, rate your capacity as a team player. Are you a team player? Are you synergistic with those who are in your team if it's a team-based experience? All right, spiritual purpose strategies, 15. How much faith do you have that everything will work out, that your performances will work out for the best no matter what you've done? Faith is a big thing with flow because when people don't have trust in their moment, they start paying attention to the past, they start paying attention to the future. So faith is a big deal, letting go of outcome. Number 16, how effective are you at tapping into a purpose or a goal higher than yourself in this particular arena? The higher the purpose, the higher the value, the deeper the level of energy. Bear with me, it's about 50 more to go. How effective are you at letting go of personal judgment? Judgment gets in the way of focus. Do you have issues with personal judgment? 18, how able are you to refrain from comparing yourself to other people in this particular arena? Number 19, how on purpose are you within this flow arena? Is it part of who you are? Number 20, do you have a clear mission that drives your values within this flow arena? Mission and vision and values, do you have it for this arena? And 21, do you believe in your ability to succeed? Self-efficacy, self-confidence, do you believe in this arena that you can and do and will perform well? Psychological strategies, number 22. How effective are you at generating positive thoughts, images, or attitudes? How well do you control those? 23. Are you able to maintain focused concentration for extended periods of time? Do you struggle with focus? 24. How effective are your skills of awareness? Are you aware of what's going on around you? Lots of different kinds of focus. We'll talk about that briefly. 25, how well do you filter out irrelevant thoughts, irrelevant feelings, attitudes, or external things that are getting in the way? 26, are you able to set goals or define clear objectives that drive your thoughts and your actions? 27, how intrinsically motivated are you in your chosen flow arena? Are you interested because of the external reward or because of the love for the thing that you're doing? 28, how effective are you in seeking the parts within the context of the whole? So can you see the forest for the trees and the trees for the forest? Can you go out broad and see it and then go in and identify the one or two things? 29, rate your current knowledge, skills, and abilities within this particular flow arena. Do you actually have the knowledge to do the thing you want to do? You can have all these strategies in place, and if you're not trained in that thing, if you're not trained in the technical stuff, it doesn't make any difference. Okay? Number 30, do you have a personal philosophy or set of personal standards that drive your performance? 31, how clearly can you see or visualize what it is you wish to accomplish? So can you actually picture the end in mind when you want to find flow? Number 32, how effective are you in remembering or regenerating past memories of success? So basically, how effectively can you tap into self-confidence by understanding your history? 33, how effective are you at labeling an emotion and processing your feelings? 34, how effective are you in generating positive or happy moods or emotions, whether it's through thought or actually just regenerating an emotion? 35, are you able to generate feelings of success and high performance when you need to, rather than feeling fear or self-doubt? Number 36, how well do you use humor or fun to manage difficult or stressful environments? Humor itself is a strategy. Physical strategies, how effective are you at managing your physical state in general? Being able to manage anxiety or stress, probably one of the biggest factors in school performance, especially around finals time, is the ability to manage stress either by body, heart, or your brain. Number 38, how effective can you relax or slow yourself down on demand? Anybody know how to do that well? Deep breathing, progressive relaxation, do it on demand. Takes a while to learn, it's a skill. Number 39, how able are you to generate high energy and engagement when you need it? Cranking up the music, jumping around, breathing level, all those things that get you pumped up. Okay? Knowing how to adjust that is a really valuable skill set. Self-regulation. How effective are you at staying in the moment or in the zone of your performance? When you finally have it, can you sustain it? Number 41. How effective are you at breaking down large tasks into smaller tasks? If it's an overwhelming experience, can you chop it down into little bite-sized pieces and make it less anxiety-filled? And then the opposite is 42. Can you take simple activities and make them more interesting, even more complex to increase your challenge? Number 43, how effective do you use breaks to revitalize yourself? So every 60 to 90 minutes, do you take a break to revitalize your energy? Number 44, how determined and committed are you to succeed and endure at the activity in question? Preparation strategies, last 20. How effective are you at planning and prioritizing for the intended flow activity? Are you a good planner? Can you prioritize and can you set the stage for finding flow? 46, how effective are you at organizing yourself, your environment within this flow arena? Are you good at organizing the resources that help you stay focused? 47, how effective are you at scheduling or blocking off time for the intended activity? Kind of the time management stuff. 48, are you able to generate enough variety in your flow arena to stay interested? Number 49, are you able to get physically comfortable within your flow arena? Reading a good book, do you get something cozy on? Clothes that are not comfortable, what? External distraction. Number 50, do you have a contingency plan in preparation for your experience? So if something doesn't go well, you have a plan to bring yourself back into the moment. 51, do you have all the tools and resources you need to succeed within your flow arena? Whatever those physical resources are. 52, have you built ample habits and or rituals that prompt a state of high performance? Personal management. 53, do you get ample exercise each week to maintain a healthy body? 54, do you live a balanced life? It's kind of a trick question when you're in college. 55, do you take care of all your personal needs, weekly massage, time with friends, time for fun, whatever it is you do to mellow out and have fun? 56, rate the quality of your food intake. Are you eating a balanced diet? 57, do you get ample rest and recovery each day, 6 to 8 hours of sleep? These are very vital, so we're going to see which ones hit your top 10 list. 58, how well do you learn from each flow experience and use it to prepare for your next? So how well do you extract the lesson out of each performance to use for the next performance moment? 59, to what degree do you consider yourself a lifelong learner and a student of performance? Are you constantly looking for ways to learn and improve and apply what it is that helps you be at your very best? So, the other 60 to 70 are simply what other things either contribute to or detract from this current arena that is unique to you. I had some things a couple years ago in our old office. The carpet was so ugly it bugged me. It distracted me. So I put external liability. I hate my carpet. There's all types of little things inside and outside that either help us or hinder us. So when you have some time tonight, take a look and identify what those are. So thanks for being patient in that process. This is a process of literally pointing out various factors that consistently show up for people that are either successfully performing well in the moment or for those that are really struggling in the moment. So your homework for tonight is to look at this finding your flow assets and liabilities analysis. Now your assets are your 10s and your 9s and maybe your 8s, but you start getting into a lot of stuff. Your liabilities are your 1s and your 2s and your 3s. Everything else from 4 to 6, you can what? Throw it away. It's important, but not important enough. So tonight, you can take and identify What are all the contributing assets that you think help you perform exceptionally well in this particular arena that you're assessing? And what are those things that you think inhibit your ability to find flow in this particular arena? Okay? Once you develop that list, the idea is, now I've got this list of stuff, I've got these list of variables, how do I find my unique performance formula? Everyone in this room has a unique performance formula. The goal of this is to help you get closer to identifying what that formula is. Okay? It begins with awareness, doing some analysis that we're talking about, a little bit of planning, learning how to execute and practice that new strategy, learning how to evaluate how that strategy is serving you or not, and ultimately how you develop a habit around that particular strategy. So it's a personal process. So this is how we're going to break it up. After you've made that list, this is your personal flow formula. It looks like this. I'm going to ask you to separate your internal and your external flow assets into two categories. The flow formula is simply your assets divided by your liabilities. It's a simple math formula. We're looking at variables. We're adding numbers to those variables. It's a pretty rigorous personal process. Most of us never do it. A 360 is a rigorous interpersonal and personal process. This in and of itself is another rigorous personal process. It allows you to kind of illuminate with a flashlight those things that impact you and help you identify the value of each of these things. So tonight you can say, hey, internal flow asset. What's an internal flow asset? I got a good attitude. I can manage my emotions well. Whatever it is for you. I've got high energy. An external flow asset might be, I love my roommates. My room is really organized. My new bed is really comfortable. I love my classrooms. Whatever it is. An internal flow liability would be something like what? What's an internal flow liability? What's that? Inability to manage emotion? Lack of focus? Negative attitude? Lack of goals? Can't manage time? Can't manage my anger? I can't stay focused? Whatever it is, it's your thing. An external flow liability, what is it? Conflicts with friends? I hate my roommates. I don't like my teachers. Life stinks. I have no money. My food's terrible. Whatever those things are that rise to the level. But you only have 5 in each category. So the question is, you got 20 things that may comprise your personal flow formula. Question is, what do you do from there? We've talked a lot about the idea of the 80-20 principle. What is the 80-20 principle? 80% of the results come from 20% of the work, right? So 80% of the things that you could do to improve performance in the classroom, whatever, is only going to come from 20% of your strategy. So the question is, how do you identify the 1 or 2 things that's going to make the biggest difference in your performance? Okay? Now, if we want to do like maybe 6 more minutes, I've got a little case. Now, how many of you remember Dan Jansen? I'll tell you what it is, and you can tell me if you want to do it. Dan Jansen, considered the best speed skater in the history of the Olympic Games. He was a world champion. He was a World Cup winner. 1988 in the Olympic Games, he finds out that his sister has died. In the final gold medal round of the Olympics, he bails. In the final round, he slips and falls, doesn't even medal. Everyone thought, what a great tragedy. The best guy in the world, totally prepared to be in the zone, totally prepared to be in his flow. He's going to train 4 more years to try to win a medal. Wins all the World Cup events, #1 in the world, gets to the Olympics, final gold medal round, and 1 minute and 47 plus seconds to prove one way or the other. How would you coach Dan Jansen? What does he pay attention to? Of all those variables that have been in his life, vision, mission, goals, training, emotional control, physical control, getting rid of external distractions, internal distractions, all that kind of stuff, how do you coach the guy? So we have here about a 5.5-minute clip of what happened at his final Olympic event. Do you want to see what happened to Dan Jansen? Okay. Hopefully this turns on. And then we'll do 5 minutes after that and summarize it and get you out of here. Okay, here we go. Dan Jansen, 1990, I believe, 4.
Along with both grandmothers and Mother Robin, the whole family, and they all await Dan Jansen and his bid in the 1,000 meters coming up next. Welcome back to the Viking ship. This is the last men's sprint of the Olympics. Americans are here in force for the much anticipated event. Getting ready for his 1,000-meter race, Dan Jansen, now or never for an Olympic medal. Will it be the Dan Jansen that clocked the world's best time in practice last week? Or the Dan Jansen who falters when faced with 5 Olympic rings? And you know that Robin is hoping for a better result this time around as is the rest of the Jansen family.
Dan is one of the skaters who has really a lot of sprint in his legs. He might not have the endurance that we'll see in some of the other skaters. So if he wants to win this, what he's got to do is skate a fast 200, fast 600, try to hang on over the last 400.
Start from the outer. On the inner is Junichi Inoue of Japan, who was 6th in the 500 meters and has the 3rd fastest time this season. In any event, there's nothing America would like to see more than an Olympic medal for that man.
Both these skaters are technically very good. They should get off and probably have one of the fastest 200 meter split times. And if Jansen wants to win this, he has to have one of the fastest 600 meter split times. It's very good going around that corner, up to speed.
He should be under 17 seconds to really have a shot in this race. And he is. Jansen at 16:71. And he is ahead of Jablonski's lead.
Ahead right now, he looks comfortable in the corner, sitting low, getting a lot out of each stroke. A little bit of a slip there, but it didn't cost too much. Now he gets a chance to sit on this pair down that back stretch, get a good draft on. Now he has to set up that turn, set it up well.
And we're looking for a time in the 600 meter split of 43.9 or better. Jansen skating well despite that slip. He's on the inner right now.
So he has slipped.
Jansen at 43.28, 6 tenths of a second. And then Jablonski, and there he goes. He'll have the final outer.
26.5 on that last lap, but you can see he's starting to tire. A little bit of slip as he left that turn. Now he's got to sit back, flip down that straightaway, swing that arm out in front of him, try to get as much glide out of each stroke as he can.
If he is first or second, you have a great chance for a medal. Third, it may not be that good. And here he comes. Dan Jansen looks good to be in the lead. Here's Dan Jansen, and he crosses it. 1:12.43, and he's in first place. Olympic ordeal may finally be over. And it is a world record. Dan Jansen in first place with a world record. And what do you know, it came down to the wire in his last chance, up by his coach, Peter Miller. It came down to the very end. Harry.
Pretty exciting stuff, huh? So, Dr. Jim Lair, a mentor of mine, was his coach for that race and found out, and some of you already know this answer. If you're a coach to Dan Jansen, how do you coach a guy like that? 1 minute and 13 seconds to justify his entire Olympic existence? And Dan, what would you say for him to do? Stay in the moment. Do you think he had a strategy? No, Dan.
Well, I think in the second time when he fell, he was reliving the fall before.
So where was his attention? In the past, right? So, you want to know the answer? It's a little past. They said, Dan, what did you do to win the gold medal? He said, well, I resigned myself to possibly not winning it. I got to let it go. So he let go of the outcome. And he decided the only thing he could do was focus on placing one skate in front of the other skate. And if he could do that, that was the only one variable he could possibly control. So everything else, his confidence, the vision of the future, his emotions, his thoughts, the outside, the history, the crowd, his wife, his kids watching, all of that stuff didn't add anything other than interference and distraction for what the most important thing was, and that was place one skate in front of the other. Amazing. The principle is that if you can find your one thing, I've given you 60 plus variables to consider. things that contribute to performance in the moment, things that can detract from performance in the moment. What's the one thing that causes you either the greatest asset that you want to work on or the greatest liability that you need to close the gap on? When you look at your performance formula, there's 3 ways to improve flow. Number 1, you can maintain or grow a strength. You can take something that you're already extraordinarily good at and make sure you sustain that strength through thick and thin. If it's high energy, if it's positive attitude, if it's good of emotion, if it's good vision and mission, whatever it is, sustain it and make sure that you don't lose it because it's a vital asset. However, if you just want to decrease your liabilities, you can do that. But if you're lucky enough to find something that's truly learnable, like emotional intelligence or goal setting or visualization, things that you've never really utilized well, and you can convert a liability into an asset, and you just do the math on this, take any number in the numerator and the numerator and the denominator, and you'll find that one of your greatest leverage points is transforming a liability into an asset if you can pull that off. Okay? So tonight, I invite you to really reflect and identify the one thing this semester until Christmas that we will consider for you to be your core training mission. The one thing that if you could either decrease it or advance it would be the biggest difference in how you perform this semester in whatever arena you have chosen. For me, a few years ago, it was about time management. 6 months later, it was about personal organization. Now my training mission is all about listening skills, learning how to truly actively listen when I'm engaged in conversations with other people, including board members and staff. So from there, we put it all together. Every single strategy you can put in this grid. What's the one thing that you're going to do that's going to make you perform in the moment? You can pay attention to things in the past. You can pay attention to things in the future. You can look inside of yourself. You can look outside of yourself. You can go broad. You can go narrow. And you have to process each of these things to some degree before you can be in the moment. If you have not processed things like mission and vision and goals, if you haven't adequately processed your history, your past, your self-confidence, if you can't manage your thoughts or your emotions or your physical body or what you've eaten or how you sleep, if you can't manage external distractions, what's going on around you, you cannot be in the middle. You have to adequately process and understand these variables so that you can find and approximate flow every single day. So for you to become consciously competent, I gave you one last sheet, and this is your one assignment. This will be part of your template. Oh, I didn't put it in there. My apologies. Oh, I did. The Dan Jansen story is in there. And that's this sheet here. When you identify that one thing, set a SMART goal around it. Something specific, measurable, something aggressive but realistic, something that's clearly definable so that when your team leader or your resident leader talks to you about, you can say, this is my one thing and this is what I'm doing about it. And then I've given you some numbers so you can actually rate the quality of your particular goal or objective. Okay? So, what happens when you've mastered that thing and you become unconsciously competent on that thing? You get to pick another thing. So, the whole concept of finding your flow is once you've done it once, you recycle the questions and you add different variables, and it's an iterative process. Every 90 days you can go back and re-identify your one core focus. This is kind of my model for how to think about personal leadership development for the rest of your life. I hope that it provides a simple way of asking questions, assessing assets and liabilities, and it gives you a way to pick your training missions from here on out. Once again, there's a lot of things that contribute to flow. It ultimately is about how you spend your moments and how you prepare for those moments and how you use those moments for the future. So I will happily, at any time, I'll do the longer version of this throughout the year for those who are interested in this. But this is kind of a taster. So hopefully you recognize that the idea of flow is really about personal leadership. If you can become more aware of these variables and factors that contribute to it, you will have a better ability to plan for it and execute it in the future. So, with that, thanks for being here, and we will end by having those who have various projects to go to their respective tables. You guys can get some food and use this time for a time of networking and for working together on projects that you're interested in recruiting for. So thanks much. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow morning.